The stars stretched across the darkness like scattered diamonds, each one a distant sun illuminating the edges of unknown worlds. Commander Ilior Kane sat in the pilot seat of the Horizon, the small human research vessel that had been chosen for a mission many thought impossible. They were heading into the heart of the Zalarian Empire, a realm so vast that humans had only whispered about it in tales and theory. To most, humanity was weak, naive, and unworthy of consideration in the grand scale of the galaxy. Ilior intended to prove them wrong. The crew was small but capable. Dr. Lyra Voss, an exoanthropologist, monitored alien communications, studying patterns in the alien frequencies they had intercepted from the outer territories. Lieutenant Cale Thorne handled navigation, mapping gravitational currents to avoid patrols that humans couldn't yet detect. Every system aboard the Horizon hummed quietly, the product of human ingenuity that blended stealth technology and adaptability. Ilior leaned forward, scanning the approaching star systems. "We're close," he said. His voice carried calm determination, the kind that inspired confidence even in situations that would make others tremble. Sensors show multiple zones of activity. Standard patrols, maybe some automated defenses, but nothing our technology can't handle. Dr. Voss's eyes flicked toward him. "Ilior, remember, we are not here to fight. Observation is our goal. Do not provoke them." Ilior nodded. "I know, that's why we are so small. That's why we move like shadows." As the Horizon slipped silently into Zalarian space, the first hints of the Empire's presence became clear. Massive constructs floated in orbit around uninhabited worlds. Each construct emitted light and energy in ways humans couldn't fully understand. The patterns were mesmerizing, almost hypnotic, but Ilior knew better than to be distracted. "We need to find the central hub," Ilior said, "the seat of the Queen's authority. That's where we'll understand their system and their weaknesses." Dr. Voss's gaze softened with worry. "And risk exposure. Remember what's at stake. One wrong move and we are dead, or worse, studied like lab specimens." Ilior smiled faintly. "Then we must move with the precision humans are known for." The approach was delicate. Zalarian defenses were unlike anything humans had faced before. Their sensors reacted not only to physical presence but to emotional fluctuations, perceiving fear, uncertainty, and even subtle intent. Ilior's crew had trained for years to mask their emotions, to present calm readings even when adrenaline surged beneath the surface. After hours of maneuvering, they reached the outskirts of the Queen's domain. A planet larger than Earth rotated slowly, its surface covered with structures that gleamed like silver in the light of its sun. Massive spires rose from the landscape, connected by energy bridges that pulsed with light. The city below seemed alive, a single organism with countless moving parts. Ilior activated the observation drones, sending them in arcs above the surface. The images transmitted back were breathtaking. Alien beings moved with elegant precision, their bodies radiating colors that shifted with their thoughts. Dr. Voss gasped softly. "They communicate with emotion itself," she whispered. "The colors are their thoughts, their intentions, their everything." Ilior studied the displays. "It explains their control," he said. "They don't just rely on orders. They can sense obedience, doubt, even loyalty without words. But I also see flaws, tiny delays, moments of hesitation. That's our window." For days, the crew observed. They tracked patrols, noted routines, and recorded the patterns of energy flow in the city. Each day, the aliens performed their tasks with precise choreography, yet Ilior saw subtle deviations. A minor misalignment here, a pause there. To a casual observer, it would seem perfect, but humans noticed. Humans adapted. Then, on the fourth day, the unexpected happened. Ilior and Dr. Voss were observing the central palace when a patrol detected them. Sensors flared, red warning lights flashed, and alarms rippled through the alien network. The crew had practiced for every scenario, but this was different. The aliens didn't immediately attack. They moved with a caution that Ilior hadn't anticipated. A massive figure emerged, gliding across the palace grounds. The queen. Her form was majestic and terrifying, taller than any human could comprehend, with limbs that extended with grace. Her body radiated shifting patterns of light, emotions visible in every pulse. Fear, curiosity, displeasure. Ilior's heart beat faster, but his outward demeanor remained calm. He stood, facing the observation window, letting the queen see him. It was a simple act, but one humans often underestimated: acknowledgement. He didn't cower or flee. He existed, and in doing so, he became different from anything she had ever faced. The queen paused. Her advisors whispered among themselves, their colors mixing and flowing with anxious energy. Ilior could almost feel the pulse of her thoughts through the transmitted sensors. She was assessing, calculating, and for the first time uncertain. "Doctor." Voss whispered, "Commander, she's aware of us. She can see through the shields." Ilior nodded. "And she's confused, that's what we need." Using calm, deliberate movements, Ilior activated a communication device. It wasn't language-based but frequency-based, transmitting patterns designed to mimic curiosity and neutrality. When the queen responded, it was not with aggression but a mirrored display of cautious interest. The human's existence, so small and fragile in appearance, was something she could not categorize. Ilior stepped forward, projecting confidence. He sent sequences of patterns that represented human logic, adaptability, and curiosity. The queen tilted her head, her colors shifting in ways that indicated awe and confusion. It was subtle, but Ilior recognized it instantly. She had never seen intelligence expressed this way. For hours, a silent conversation unfolded. Ilior's team recorded every pulse, every shift in her advisor's energy fields. They noted her hesitation, the cracks in her control over the court, the slight disruption in her typically flawless patterns. Humans had no special powers, no advanced weaponry, yet their unpredictability was the greatest weapon of all. Then, a sudden move. The queen signaled for her guards to surround the observation area. The Horizon crew froze, but Ilior remained calm. He stepped forward, hands open, signaling peace. The guards paused, uncertain. The queen herself extended a luminous appendage, not in threat but in direct observation of the humans. Ilior spoke, not in words but through carefully structured emotional patterns. Respect. Curiosity, intelligence, humor. It was a strange combination, one that resonated with the queen in a way that none of her advisors could replicate. Her patterns flickered, showing hesitation, a tremor in authority. The Empire felt it too, even if none could articulate it. "Doctor." Voss whispered, "She's reconsidering. She doesn't know what we are." Ilior nodded. "Exactly, and that is our advantage." Over the next day, the crew was allowed to move more freely under observation. Each small act of human ingenuity, each demonstration of adaptability, challenged the queen's perception. They repaired minor system malfunctions on the planet with simple mechanical tools, taught alien assistants a more efficient method of resource distribution, and even used humor to diffuse tension. Everywhere the humans moved, subtle shifts occurred. Advisors questioned long-standing rules. Patrols hesitated slightly longer before acting. The queen's pulse of authority was no longer absolute. By the fifth day, Ilior realized the full extent of what was happening. Humans were considered weak, insignificant, incapable of mastering alien logic. Yet their very unpredictability disrupted a system built on absolute order. One human, calmly observing and interacting with respect, had introduced uncertainty into the heart of an empire. Ilior gathered his team. "We have accomplished more than data collection," he said. "We've proven something far greater. Humanity is not just clever with tools, we are clever with thought, with emotion, with perspective." And no empire, no matter how vast, can fully anticipate what a human will do next. As night fell over the alien city, the queen herself appeared before the observation window, her vast form illuminated by the glow of her palace. She radiated colors of contemplation and caution, her advisors around her uncertain. Ilior met her gaze, calm and unwavering. For the first time in her long reign, the queen trembled, not in fear of physical harm, but in awe of human possibility. She did not understand fully, yet she could sense the potential. Her empire, a meticulously organized and absolute structure, felt a ripple she could not ignore. The final moments of Part 1 were quiet but electric. The humans were allowed to depart the observation zone, under the watchful gaze of the queen herself. There was no celebration, no victory, yet Ilior knew that the seeds had been planted. The queen's curiosity, the doubts in her advisors, and the subtle tremor in her authority were all the beginning of something greater. The human crew returned to the horizon, exhausted but exhilarated. They had entered an empire that considered them insignificant and left a trace of change behind, a whisper of unpredictability that would echo in the halls of power. Ilior looked back at the planet as it rotated beneath them, the spires glinting in alien light. He smiled. This is only the beginning. Humanity is about to show them what we are capable of. Dr. Voss nodded, her eyes bright with excitement and apprehension. And they will never forget the day they underestimated us. As the horizon slipped silently back into the black of space, the empire below remained unaware of the full scope of the storm approaching. But the first tremors had begun, and nothing would be the same again. The horizon glided silently through the blackness of space, leaving behind the planet where the Queen of Zalarian had first encountered humanity. Commander Ilior Kane leaned back in his chair, the soft hum of the engines filling the cabin. His crew worked quietly around him, reviewing the data they had collected, noting every flicker, hesitation, and irregularity in the Queen's control. "We've done something remarkable," Dr. Lyra Voss said softly, her eyes scanning the starfield. "She doesn't know what to make of us. She's never faced a species like ours." Ilior nodded. "That hesitation is power, not in the sense of strength but in the sense of influence. We are the first humans she has truly had to consider." For days after leaving Zalarian space, the crew reviewed their recordings, examining every nuance of alien behavior. Ilior had noticed patterns that the Queen herself had not fully recognized, moments where alien logic could be improved, where communication could be made more efficient, where rigid structures limited creativity. Humans had a unique advantage: adaptability. Ilior decided it was time to act. They returned to Zalarian space, not as intruders but as advisors, careful observers whose purpose was to show the aliens that human thinking could enhance their empire, not destroy it. The first step was subtle. Using small acts of ingenuity, the humans began improving minor systems on Zalarian's outer worlds. They introduced simple methods of coordination that allowed alien workers to reduce errors and complete tasks faster. They demonstrated ways of problem-solving that relied on collaboration rather than strict hierarchy. Each innovation was presented as a suggestion, not a command, and the results were immediate. Reports of the human effect spread quickly. Alien workers began whispering to one another, noting how these strange, small beings could think in ways no Zalarian mind could. Curiosity and excitement rippled through the empire, causing advisors and lower-tier officials to reconsider long-standing protocols. Ilior understood that true influence would come not through confrontation, but through example. Humans did not have to fight to be respected. They only had to show that their methods worked better than rigid tradition. One day, the Queen herself appeared before the humans once more. Her form was immense, radiant with shifting colors that reflected caution, curiosity, and a hint of unease. Ilior approached, projecting calm confidence. "You have caused unusual effects in my empire," the queen's thought waves pulsed. "Your presence disrupts the order I have maintained for centuries." "Why?" Ilior allowed a small smile. "We do not seek to disrupt, we seek to improve. Humans are not like other species. We think differently, we adapt differently. What may seem unpredictable is actually a method of finding better solutions." The queen's colors shifted, flickering in a pattern Ilior recognized as contemplation. "You are unusual. Others of your kind have been studied, dismissed, or contained. You are free yet intelligent." "Why?" Ilior shrugged slightly. "Because we question, we learn, and we improvise. Rules guide us, but they do not bind us completely. We see possibilities where others see limits. That is why you hesitate." For hours they communicated. Ilior demonstrated, not with weapons or force, but with logic, creativity, and human emotion. He showed the queen examples from her own empire, small inefficiencies that humans could help fix. He proposed ways to coordinate planets, manage resources, and encourage innovation. Her advisors watched silently, many in shock. Some could not hide their fear. This small species, incapable of strength or intimidation, was now teaching their queen how to govern more effectively. The humans also introduced subtle methods of collaboration between alien sub-factions that had long been kept apart. By connecting ideas, perspectives, and resources in ways Zalarian tradition forbade, they showed how creativity and cooperation could solve problems that had confounded the empire for generations. The queen was astonished. She had never encountered a mind that could see beyond hierarchy and structure. Yet, instead of threatening Ilior, she found herself intrigued. For the first time, she questioned her long-held beliefs about order, power, and control. Ilior understood this moment was pivotal. He suggested a test, one that would challenge the queen without confrontation. A crisis simulation, based on real inefficiencies in her empire, was presented as a puzzle. The queen, confident in her power, accepted. Ilior guided the simulation, introducing variables that required collaboration, innovation, and adaptability. Each step relied on principles humans used every day: empathy, compromise, thinking outside the box. The queen's advisors began to notice something extraordinary. The humans' methods solved problems faster than traditional approaches and with less conflict. The simulation ended with complete success. Systems that had been stagnant for decades now operated efficiently. Resources were balanced, productivity improved, and alien factions that had once resisted each other now found ways to cooperate. The queen's colors shifted through a spectrum she had never experienced before, a mix of awe, respect, and understanding. "You have done something I never thought possible," she admitted. "You have shown me that my empire is not as perfect as I believed, and yet you have not taken control, you have improved it." Ilior nodded. "Humans do not need to rule, we do not need to dominate. We only need to demonstrate what is possible when thought, emotion, and creativity are used together. That is our greatest strength." The queen remained silent for a long time, her advisors waiting anxiously. Finally, she radiated a pattern of acknowledgement, a form of respect that in Zalarian culture was nearly equivalent to submission. "I see now that your species is extraordinary. I will not claim to fully understand you, but I recognize your worth. You have shaken the foundations of my empire without violence, without coercion. That is a power I cannot ignore." Ilior smiled. "We hoped you would see it that way. Humanity does not seek to destroy, only to create, adapt, and thrive. That is why we are often underestimated." From that day, the empire began to change. Advisors who had doubted the humans started to adopt their methods, encouraging creativity and collaboration across planets. Subfactions previously restricted by tradition were now connected, and alien workers found greater efficiency and satisfaction in their tasks. The queen, once absolute in her control, now led with a combination of authority and flexibility, inspired by human thinking. Elior and his crew spent weeks demonstrating human strategies, helping the Empire evolve without ever taking command. Everywhere they went, they left subtle shifts in policy, small improvements in workflow, and examples of problem-solving that no alien had previously considered. Meanwhile, stories of the human effect spread throughout Zalarian worlds. Rumors whispered through colonies that a small species, with no great weapons or fleets, could influence even the queen herself. People began to treat humans with a mixture of awe and caution, realizing that intelligence, adaptability, and creativity could be more powerful than brute force. The queen, now deeply intrigued by humans, requested private consultations with Elior. She questioned him about his species, history, philosophy, and methods. Elior spoke honestly, emphasizing human curiosity, perseverance, and capacity for empathy. He described humanity's ability to learn from mistakes, to collaborate despite differences, and to find solutions where others saw only problems. "You are unlike any species I have ever known," the queen admitted. "And yet, you are fragile. How do you survive in such a harsh universe?" Elior leaned forward, a quiet determination in his gaze. "Our survival comes from our ability to adapt, to think, to cooperate, and to see the world in ways others cannot. Strength is not always about power. Sometimes it is about understanding, creativity, and perseverance. That is what makes humans dangerous in a way you cannot predict." The queen's radiance shifted again, a subtle tremor in her authority that the humans had first noticed days ago. For the first time, she understood that her empire, vast and meticulously organized, could not fully anticipate human potential. Humanity was a force not because of weapons or fleets, but because of thought itself. As the days passed, the humans prepared to depart. Their mission was complete, but their impact would resonate for generations. The queen, acknowledging the value of their presence, offered them gifts of knowledge and access to resources, an unprecedented gesture in Zalarian history. Elior accepted graciously, knowing the true gift was not these materials, but the change they had inspired. The empire was shifting, evolving, and the humans had planted the seeds. On the final day, the queen appeared once more, her enormous form radiant with colors of respect and contemplation. "You leave with my acknowledgement," she said. "Not as rulers, not as conquerors, but as equals in thought. The empire will remember you." Elior bowed slightly. "We do not need to be remembered as rulers. We only need to be understood." As the horizon rose from the planet's orbit, the crew looked back at the sprawling empire below. Massive spires glinted in the sun, and energy bridges pulsed with the rhythm of alien life. Yet beneath the perfection, subtle tremors ran through the systems, the marks of human influence. The queen's advisors whispered, planets adjusted, and the once rigid hierarchy began to bend in ways that encouraged growth and adaptability. Dr. Voss turned to Elior. "They will never see us the same way again." Elior smiled faintly. "No, and they never will. Humanity has shown what it is capable of, not through fear, not through violence, but through thought, creativity, and adaptability. That is how we make our mark on the universe." As the horizon slipped back into the endless black of space, the crew felt a quiet satisfaction. They had entered an empire that considered them insignificant and left a ripple that would spread far beyond the stars. They had proven that human ingenuity and empathy could move the foundations of even the greatest powers without ever lifting a weapon. Somewhere in the distance, the queen gazed at the stars, contemplating the species that had shaken her empire. Her advisors remained puzzled, uncertain, and yet intrigued. Zalarian had faced many threats, but none like this. A small, fragile species, underestimated by all, had demonstrated a power that no alien mind could have predicted. Humanity was no longer a whisper at the edge of the galaxy. It had become a presence, a force defined not by strength, but by intellect, adaptability, and courage. And as the horizon disappeared into the darkness, Elior Kane knew that this was only the beginning of a story the universe would never forget. The stars ahead glimmered with possibilities. And for the first time in centuries, even the Queen of Zalarian trembled, not in fear, but in awe of what humanity could achieve.